Where else have people who have inspired millions who spoke against authority ever ended up besides jail or dead?
The Matrix is calling.
Time's up. If you look at
Palestine, Israel.
absolutely, because it is a all my bank accounts were frozen, everything was taken from me.
Was it gradual or was it just?
Instant, woke up, everything was taken. Now that we've removed masculinity absolutely from the West, we're going to be conquered.
How do you see it ending?
I think that
Andrew Tate used to get nervous with women.
when you're a teenager, I think everyone is. If you understand how the world really works, you're gonna say things sometimes they can take and weaponize and attack you with. All I can say about Elon, I think he's done fantastic things in terms of cracking the matrix. We're reaching such a level of softness in society that people don't like the way I say things. It comes across too aggressive. Aren't we going back to how it used to be? Didn't kings have like 10 wives? A version of the matrix is always gonna be, to some degree, necessary.
What would your final words be to the world?
Hi, my name is Andrew Tate, and I'm one of the passionate few.
Now, let me ask you this. When you were in jail, obviously you're going through so much, were you tripping about money? Because
No.
I'm sure, because I mean, you took all this time to make, of course people speculate on your net worth and how much you're worth and, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billion-dollar valuation. But it took you a lot of work, a lot of time, energy, right? Like so much of you and Tristan and, the whole empire you built. Are you tripping about money at this stage? Are you worried about how it's tied up? Or
My bills will be paid for me and the people I love for the rest of my life, even if I go to jail tomorrow forever. So I knew that was good.
going in?
Yeah, I knew that was good.
And when people say how,
But, well, yeah, and I have to be careful what I say. What I will think most people don't at home understand is the logistics of money and how difficult it is to move sometimes and how difficult it is to access and use. The average person just sees money as, I have money in my bank. But that's not your money. Because if you annoy your bank or your bank gets a letter, you'll quickly see that that money's not yours, it's the bank's, and it's gone.
or if you want to take $100 grand out, like, nope,
Yeah,
sorry, you're not
too
allowed.
much. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then you have physical cash, which is being phased out. You can't even buy most expensive things with cash anymore. So cash isn't usable anymore. So it's setting yourself up and setting up your financial structure so that money can still be accessible and can still be in the hands of all the people who need it. And then when the matrix is trying to get hold of all of my money, they're also going to look at all the finances of the people close to me and then try and track down the money they have. And you have to be prepared for that. It's a job in and of itself, these things. And it's complicated. And yeah, I have to be very careful what I say.
Yeah, no worries.
But
I get it.
I knew my bills were going to be paid. I knew my children were going to be okay. But none of these things are simple. They're very difficult and very complicated to do. It's a full-time job in and of itself. And I'm just glad I had pre-prepared to the level I had. If I hadn't, then I don't know what would be going on, because jail feels like a different lifetime. It feels so long ago, but I haven't had a penny technically on paper since that day.
Has that humbled you in any way?
No. Nah.
Now,
I don't need money anyway. I mean, it's not money that makes me brash. In fact, I think I'd be far worse if I was broke. If you were to take all my money off me right now and then sit me down in front of a camera when I had nothing, I'd be far worse. I had nothing to lose then at all. So it's not. If they think that bankrupting me is going to make me shut up, they're going to learn.
Yeah.
If they succeed, they're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
It's the absolute opposite. The first thing they're going to do always is try and hit your money. Because money. What are they begging America for from Ukraine right now? Money. You want to fight a war, you need money. So if they take your money away, you don't have bullets in your gun. That's the first thing they're going to do.
And the world tried taking your money away. I remember you woke up one day, all your bank accounts were canceled. And
Yeah, that's right. All my bank accounts were frozen. Everything was taken from me.
was it gradual or was it just one day, everything?
Instant. Woke up, everything was taken.
Flip switch, just like that.
Flip switch. All my bank accounts in every country they could find in my name was taken overnight.
Just like that. No explanation.
No explanation. I got some letter from the bank, something about our values and some garbage, some complete generic nothing you get later on.
So the funds were just locked up.
Locked, yeah. That's right. I still don't have them. So it's been two and a half years. I don't think I'll ever get them back. How
did you react to that?
Well,
I'm sure you were a little pissed off.
I was, but I expected it to happen. I don't think it's amazing to me that there's people going through the world today who believe that the world functions how they're told it functions. That they believe that there's law and there's banks and there's regulation and
this is supposed to happen this way. No, it's all a lie. Everything is a lie. And I don't think people at home understand the basic premise of, if you had two teams playing basketball for $100 and there was no referee, then people would end up cheating and breaking the rules to try and win. And that's for $100. That's human nature. So imagine how they're going to cheat and break the rules to control the most powerful nation on earth in an election, or to control and influence how people think with an information war. To think that they're going to allow somebody to sit on the internet and become the most famous man in the world and say whatever he wants, counter to their narratives, and they're not going to damage him, is asinine. You must understand that that's not going to be allowed to happen, and you must understand they're going to break all the rules to damage that person. Somebody made a phone call, and they deleted all of my social media and locked all of my banks at once and took all of my things. And then the Matrix attack increased, and I was arrested here in Romania. They took all of my cars, all my gold, all my diamond watches, all the property they could find, everything in my name. They took all of it. They took it. And the goal is to bankrupt me. Their goal is to bankrupt me for a variety of reasons. One, because it prevents me from fighting back. And secondly, because they're trying to put a massive amount of mental stress on me. You live inside of your mind at the end of the day. It's only inside of your head that you're existing. So their primary objective is to take all of your money away so that your children can't eat, so the women who depend on you are calling you up, crying, screaming about their needs, so that the staff you're supposed to pay can't feed their families, so that you're in the middle of an implosion. That's what they want. They want me to be answering the phone to people saying, pay my bills, and I can't do it anymore. And then, by extension of that, your circle starts to fall away, and they can identify attack vectors. Well, this girl who was loyal to him when we first interviewed her because her rent was being paid, now has a new man, and this new man doesn't like that she's Andrew's ex anyway. So maybe we drag her in a second time, she'll say things we want her to say. That's the primary objective. So if you're a man who wants to tell the truth and speak his opinion and understand you're going to upset powerful people, you need to be prepared for all of this. And you need to understand that there are mechanisms you can put in place, because I'm still alive, that allow you to exist financially post-Matrix attack, but also to make money outside of these mechanisms is a massive advantage. And that's what the internet is good for. I actually would argue, because I was having this conversation the other day, I think I'm in quite a rare category of person. I think that I'm quite difficult for them to attack, which is why I'm so frustrating to them, because even 8 years ago, which isn't that long ago, 7, 8 years ago, right? Who was truly famous without gatekeeping? Like, if you're an actor, you're gatekeeping. You're gatekept. If you're a singer, gatekeeping. Sports star, gatekeeping. There was always someone, you had a contract, there was always someone who called your phone, said what you can say, what you can't say, don't have this opinion.
Signing off.
That's right. There's always someone who could make you disappear, get you canceled, kick you out the team, get you canceled, no more movies, etc. Then the internet came, and there were some people who were big online, fine, but then the social media companies were gatekeeping for a long time. But to crack that wall and to get bigger than the gatekeepers to a point where they can't contain you, all they have left is the legal system at that point, which is why I'm in the predicament I'm in. But I think I'm quite an interesting category of person for them to hurt, because usually when people talk like I talk, they're either insignificant, usually because they've been stopped so early and prevented from growth, or they just canceled their contract and they have to go away. It's usually one of two things that happen.
Yeah, but you own your medium, you own your broadcasting in a certain way. And it's funny because you talked about you were the most viral person on social media before you even had a lot of TikTok accounts. Like, you were the most viral person on these platforms before it even happened. So the power of e-commerce, the power of your brand gave you that ability.
Hey guys, we'll get right back to this video in a sec. But first, I have a quick question for you. Given that the e-commerce industry is growing by the trillions year over year, have you ever dreamed of running your own e-commerce business like many of the guests we've interviewed on the show? But maybe you felt overwhelmed about where to begin? Lucky for you, today's sponsor, Zendrop, solves this exact problem. You see, with Zendrop, you simply select high-quality products, add them to your store, and they handle shipping and fulfillment while you make the profit. No more guessing games on product sourcing or dealing with inventory hassles. Zendrop's platform is designed with you in mind, making it incredibly simple to launch and scale your dropshipping business in a one-stop shop. Plus, they're offering an exclusive deal. Sign up today through our link below, and their team will personally craft your very own store to kickstart your e-commerce journey. They even have weekly coaching calls to answer all of your questions and help you get up and running in no time. It's truly more than just a platform. It's your e-commerce partner waiting to join you on the path to success. So why wait? It only takes 5 minutes or less to sign up. Simply hit pause, head over to zendrop.com/passion, and let's turn your passion for e-commerce into a thriving online business today. Thank you to Zendrop for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, there's been some videos that broke down how I became so famous and how I became so known around the world, but we put together an extremely sophisticated affiliate network, and the primary objective was to drive people to our own social media network so we could tell the truth, because I was upset about COVID and a few other things. And then that amalgamated into understanding the people inside of our network who want to hear what I have to say and who want to speak the truth are also going to need to make money, and they're also going to need to be matrix proof, which is how the school evolved into what it is today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, isn't it crazy we live in a world where if you have an opinion which differs from the norm whatsoever, you can't even hold a job? I do like to do thought experiments though and think, would the world be better if everyone could say what they thought all of the time? Because sometimes, I'll be honest and I admit, sometimes you have to always, and I think a lot of people don't do this often enough, is sit and consider if they're on the right side of history. And I truly believe I am absolutely on the right side of history, but for me to come to that conclusion, I need to sit and think about it, right? People don't sit and think, am I the good guy? Because in a war, the bad guys always think they're the good guys.
Yeah.
That's how it works. There's two good guys.
Yeah, or the bad guys will label the good guy as the bad guy.
Absolutely.
Frame control.
And,
Yeah.
and the truth is, often, there are no good guys and bad guys. There are varying interests and different levels of good and bad, and everything's a shade of gray.
Subjective
it's not
based
black
on
and
interest,
white.
right.
But I truly believe I'm on the right side of history. But you have to sit and analyze these things, and I don't think people do it often enough. And I've come to the conclusion that we do need some degree of matrix. You do need some degree of slave-minded populace. You do need some degree of societal control over the way people think and act. And that makes me sad to say, but I think if you totally removed it, there would be absolute anarchy. I think it should be replaced with God. I think we should have a different system. I think people do need controlling. But if everyone could say what they thought all of the time, would the world be a better place? I'm not sure. But it would certainly be a lot less deceptive. And I feel like the truth of God is light on issues. I think that if we're going to be making decisions which can affect millions of lives, or people are going to be blown apart, or someone's going to be sent to a war, we should at least know the truth about why it's happening. And the problem is right now we're operating in such a cloud of deception all of the time. And if people could speak their mind all of the time, perhaps we'd remove some of that fog and it'd be a far more open discourse. But I don't know if that would lead to absolute chaos and all. It's a very interesting thought experiment. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and to speak to that point, it's interesting you say that, because you look at President Donald Trump, right? The second on social media it's too loud, banned.
Yeah.
Right? Mitigate. What are your thoughts on the upcoming election, President Donald Trump?
Oh, well, you're trying to get me killed. I think that it's the last hope for the West. I think it's the last hope for the Western powers as we imagine them and know them. I think that America still believes it is the world's only superpower, and it's actually 2 decades behind in its thinking. I think they're still holding on to ideas from the 90s and 80s. I don't think they're as powerful as they believe they are. I think there's other massive global players. I think the decline of Western society culturally is being accelerated, and I believe Trump can slow that down. I don't think he can stop it. I don't think Trump having 4 years of presidency are going to prevent the cultural decimation of the West. However, I certainly think it will slow it down. And we can talk about things politically, and we can talk about the politics of it and how the election's coming up and whether he's going to win and if they're going to let him win. But I think actually, truthfully, it's culture that drives societies. Because you could take all of the laws and all of the politicians of Sweden and put them in power in Burkina Faso, and you would not have Sweden. There's different cultures, different ways of life, different societies, different demographics, different everything. So I think it's culture that drives. And you can look at that in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think firearm statistics prove it probably the best, that in Switzerland, there's huge gun ownership and there's no mass shootings and there's no murders, but in America, there is. And is that because of the gun laws? Is that because of the gun prevalence? No, it's because of the culture.
The people.
And the people. So I think Trump would be a massive culture win.
Have you talked to him or his team or any kind of anything, or is that off?
I have to be careful what I say publicly, because I don't want to get him tied to my current legal mess, but that also answers the question.
Sure.
But I think it's a cultural win more than it is a political win. And it's culture that drives. Because Trump winning would be fantastic for the culture because it would reestablish masculinity and nationalism and an air of competence and speaking what you think and removing this fear of political correctness. That's a culture win, which will have massive ramifications for the culture of the country, which is more important than the politics of the country anyway. So yeah, I think Trump is the last chance because we have to change the culture of the West if we're going to survive. The current trajectory of Western culture only ends in being conquered because it doesn't allow men to even be men anymore in nearly any regard. And it's only masculine essence that's going to protect and preserve a society. It's always been that way. It would be the men that stopped the other people from taking over your village, town, country, whatever it was. And now that we've removed masculinity absolutely from the West, we're going to be conquered. And in the short term, we're going to be conquered by our women before we're conquered by everyone else. And I feel like we're almost already there. I'd argue that we live in a society where women have more power than men in nearly every regard. I can't think of an example where, outside of physical violence, where a man has an advantage over a woman in anything anymore. And all of a man's natural imperatives are ignored, and everything a man cares about is ignored, and his feelings are ignored, and his desires are ignored. And society still expects certain things of us. They still expect us to charge into a burning building when it's on fire, because only men are going to be able to do that. But at the same time, they don't want to raise men who are brave. And we're in this weird hypocritical scenario, which is allowing society to limp on. But in 2 generations from now, there's going to be no men which charge into burning buildings anymore. And then what's going to happen?
May I ask your thoughts on President Biden?
You're certainly trying to get me killed.
We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
I'll answer it, but I'll say right here on this podcast that I was thrown in a jail in Romania with heavy support, if not instigation, from the State Department of the United States of America, the Democrats.
Okay.
And Biden is a Democratic president, and I hope he enjoys. Hopefully, I hope his retirement's coming up soon. Let's put it that way. I think that'd be good for the world. You know, it's kind of interesting because when you're a tough guy, you rely on your bravado and your reputation far more often than your actual capability. It doesn't matter. We can take it away from countries. If you're a gangster, right, you rely on your name far more often than your actual capability. You may build your name off the back of killing 2 or 3 people or doing a few heinous things, but that name allows you to survive for years without having to do bad things again. So it's often bark over bite in life. And America was the #1 example of that. And now that they've lost the world's respect, they find themselves having to bite and start all these wars and fight all these fights to try and prove they're still the people they said they were. And then imagine that's not going as well as it should be. It's just accelerating the decline of the respect of the nation. And whether that can even be saved anymore and recovered anymore, I'm not sure. But certainly a weak American president has accelerated the decimation of Western global dominance. That's clear because the America of old could simply bark. And that's what made them who they were.
Now, switching gears, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of people hear a lot of what you talk about, and they hear a lot of these views on many things in life. What do you think is the biggest misconception or thing that's been taken out of context of your views? Because a lot of people take clips, stitch them up, stuff from 8 years ago, you know, or 6 years ago, 3 years ago. What do you think is the biggest misconception?
I don't know if there is a true misconception. I think a lot of it is just weaponized virtue. I think people sit and pretend that they believe I'm something I'm not because it allows them to attack me. And they want to attack me because they don't like me for whatever reason. And they can't say I'm not successful. And they can't say I'm not happy and I'm not living a good life. And they can't say I'm not competent and they can't say I'm stupid. So they'll sit there and say I'm a bad person. And then why is he a bad person? Well, because of X. And they'll weaponize a virtue, pretending they care about whatever issue when they don't. I get called a misogynist all the time, which I think most people understand isn't true. Me talking about the natural biological imperatives of men and women does not make me a misogynist. Me saying that women are better at certain things than men and men are better at certain things than women does not make me a misogynist. It makes me a realist. But I don't even subscribe to these paradigms anymore. I used to sit and explain why I'm not misogynistic, but now I refuse to even do that. I am a realist. And as a realist, I will say some things which can be labeled homophobic sometimes. Like,
the fact that the family between a man and a woman and procreation is the future of a nation and the future of society and the future of humanity. That will be called homophobic sometimes. I will say things that will be called misogynistic sometimes. If I say that women are incapable of fighting a man physically, you can call me a misogynist for that. And you can come along and talk about female UFC fighters and try and pretend the exceptions disprove the rule, and you can go down all these stupid arguments, which I refuse to do.
Yeah.
I no longer subscribe to any of these views. I am a realist, and as a realist, if you understand how the world really works, you're going to say things sometimes they can take and weaponize and attack you with. But then we go back to what we said earlier. Are you going to be the kind of person who now is afraid to say certain things because he has to protect his livelihood, or he can't take the pressure and take the heat? Because if you are, you're rejecting reality. You're effectively living in a false reality because you know the reality of the real world, but you're afraid to say it. So then you're going to pretend reality is different than it is.
Yeah.
I would argue this. I would love for somebody to do this, because there was a time people were walking around on YouTube asking people questions in public. Go up, walk through a feminist city, somewhere liberal, some liberal city, and just ask men and women in general, do you think men are stronger than women? The most basic, simple question. And this is not insulting women in any way. Women love a man who's stronger than them. It's what they want, it's what they look for. So this is not insulting to women. But just walk around and ask them and watch how hard they try to cope their way out of telling the truth. Well, it depends on the woman. Well, it depends on the man. Well, sometimes. What do you mean strong? What does strong mean? Well, I know a girl who's a Taekwondo black belt. Garbage. You'll watch them cope their way out of reality because they're scared to say the truth, because that truth they feel has consequences. So now they are changing the fabric of reality. And unfortunately, if enough of these idiots do that, it has massive knock-on consequences. I would love for someone to walk through Moscow and ask the same question. And see how many people would be trying to cope their way out of an answer. So we've built a society which is so fearful that people are afraid to tell the basic biological realities of humanity in America, where I thought you had the First Amendment. I thought you had free speech there. But in the country where they put free speech in the Constitution, people won't say things which are pertinently obvious. So it's very interesting the level of psyop we're currently operating under and how they've tied it all together and how dangerous it can all be. So I no longer subscribe to any of these ideals. You've asked, what do people think of me that isn't true? I'm not going to sit and say I'm not a misogynist or I'm not homophobic or I'm not racist or whatever this garbage they come at me with. I don't even care anymore. I'm a realist. And if you're going to listen to everything I say, you'll probably understand that I know that the world is nuanced and nothing is black and white. But if you're going to take a small clip of it, you're going to make me whatever you want me to be.
Exactly.
And you can do that. And I can take the pressure, I can take the heat. I don't care if they hate me. It doesn't bother me at all, because the real world consequences of being disliked, I've suffered, and I'm still currently suffering at the maximum level. Being disliked to the point they throw you in jail, take all your money away, ostracized by the mainstream media, attempting to get you effectively assassinated by riling up psychopaths, trying to drag in your family and get them damaged and get them canceled and get their lives ruined. I'm at maximum pain threshold. If the volume's at the top, I don't have to fear them turning it up. So I may as well sit and tell the truth now, right? The worst they can do to me is throw me back in jail.
Well,
and once again, that's fine.
And it's interesting because you're absolutely right about it's all about context and nuances, and a lot of people play semantics games. They'll take a piece of what you say, turn it into a narrative. But if you think about it, just to kind of like zoom out and get philosophical, words are social constructs, right? So one word, it's a social construct from society to society. So it's easy to group all of the nuances of what you say into misogynist, and instantly a lot of wisdom gets thrown under that.
Well, the people who say misogynist don't even know what it means. The people who say misogynist don't even know what misogynistic means most of the time.
Probably can't even spell it.
Of course. So they're just matrix-minded. I find it so interesting. When I was first arrested and they said, Andrew Tate, human trafficker, BBC, blah, blah, blah. I find it so interesting that there are people out there which will so instantly adopt a worldview and attach emotional reaction and emotional investment to that worldview with no proof whatsoever.
Or digging in to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was arrested and everyone said Andrew's a human trafficker. BBC, Andrew Tate, arrested human trafficking, etc. Within 2 minutes, there are people on Instagram
don't know who these people are, saying, he's a human trafficker, he's a terrible person. I haven't been convicted. They've not seen a picture or a video or heard a witness statement, because the victims don't exist. They've seen nothing but a headline. They are now prepared to die on that hill. They're sitting there arguing it emotionally, like they truly believe it in their heart.
Keyboard warriors.
Why do you even believe it? Firstly, why do you even care? Secondly, why do you even believe it? You've seen no evidence. You've seen nothing. You've just seen a headline. These people, you could print "the sky is green" and they'd sit there and start arguing about it. You could say something as stupid. Let me think of something as stupid as possible. Men can get pregnant. You could start saying that garbage, and there are people who would begin to repeat it because they are told it. And they'll have an emotional investment in this worldview, despite the fact that it's absolute garbage and everybody knows it's not true. Isn't that scary? Because that's how the worst things on life and the worst things that have ever happened in the world happen. If you look at an ethnic genocide, and let's ignore the one that's currently ongoing, which is very saddening.
Palestine, Israel.
Absolutely, because it is a genocide. But you could take two random tribes in some random country, and if you can say to your people, that tribe, they're all evil, without showing any proof, without giving any true reasoning, just because you said it, and those people will become emotional about what you've said, you can now inspire your tribe to murder the others. That's how bad things happen. The people who pretend to be virtuous, the ones who call me misogynistic, the ones who sit there and say, he's a human trafficker, they're the ones who are so easily emotionally manipulated. Those are the ones who always end up doing the worst things in history. Those are the bad people. The good people sit and say, wait, okay, the BBC said this, but the BBC lie. And all they've ever done is lie. Where is the evidence? Show me. Is he convicted? Where's the court case? Where's the victims? Is there anything here?
Yeah.
People don't even think that critically. It's crazy.
Instead of innocent until proven guilty, they flipped it on you, guilty until proven innocent.
And it's not even just about me, and it's just about all the narratives in the world today. The fact that they can still, after lying to us so many times, print something, and people will instantly just believe it and start repeating it and emotionally defending it. It's the emotionality that fears me. If the people who were defending it were saying, well, the mainstream media said this, so perhaps we should investigate it, quite logically, I wouldn't be so afraid. What makes me scared is that people will become emotionally invested instantly and prepared to defend it with their emotions, and they'll be angry if you don't believe it also.
With zero context, zero evidence, zero anything.
Because those are the people that do the most heinous things. COVID was based on people like that. The vaccine was based on people like that. There were people calling for you to not be able to leave your house, for you to be put in prison if you don't get a vaccine.
Yeah, curfews.
Curfew. There was people calling for you to have your life ruined if you don't get a vaccine. And these same people now haven't even introspected and worked out that they were fooled and psyoped, are now continuing to believe in psyops and repeat them. These are dangerous people. They are agents of the Matrix in and of themselves. And they're not sitting there going, I'm a bad person. I am being fooled. I'm a weapon of war against humanity and freedom and everything beautiful about life. Instead, they're sitting there saying, I know the BBC is a human trafficker. It's crazy. So that's why I don't prescribe to any of these insults or any of these brackets they try and put me in, the parameters of misogyny or the parameters of homophobic. I don't prescribe to it because the kind of people who even use those words are just people who can be weaponized into false virtues to attack anyone who speaks against the Matrix in the first place.
And what I love too is that you give a lot of nuance, and it's really interesting because if people see a 1-minute clip, it's very different than when they hear you elaborate, right? They hear a microcosm, for example, with the homosexuality thing.
Yeah.
I love that you said earlier, I don't have a problem with that. I'm cool with it. On the microcosm, that's one thing, but your philosophy is more about at scale, society, what it does. So your opinion's on that, but they take it, well, how are you attacking me for it, right? So it's the frame control that people have. I'm curious, what do you say to people, because I've heard this so many times about you, is that a lot of people agree with a lot of your philosophies, right, on a global scale, but they say, the thing about Tate is that his style's a little aggressive, and that's the issue I have, and I think what he's saying is good, but I think the level of intensity or the animation or the passion he communicates with is intense, and I don't like the way he communicates his message. What are your thoughts to people who say that? They like your message, but your delivery is a little intense.
Yeah,
and they judge the delivery more so than the message, the nuances, right?
Hey guys, quick question. Have you been enjoying this video, but you're thinking to yourself, man, I love this content, but I want to learn how to grow my brand or my business? Well, if your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, millions of entrepreneurs deal with this exact same issue. And it's something that I've learned the answer to from interviewing 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs around the world. And this philosophy that solves all that is a concept called who, not how. Now, the who, not how philosophy states that anytime you're stuck on the hows to get to the next level in your life, your brand, or your business, that there's always a who to help you get there. And it's for this exact reason that I'm super excited to announce that I've officially launched our brand new Passionate Few community to help you do exactly that. And yes, it's 100% free. Join me and the thousands of other entrepreneurs that can help you make your life, your business, and your dreams a reality. With no further ado, let's get back to the video.
It's very interesting to me that we've also reached a stage of society where men being animated or passionate is somehow seen as offensive.
The passionate few.
Yeah, but so let's analyze what you just said. I'm person X. I like what Andrew says. I believe what he says is true. I believe what he says can benefit people. He's helped me, and I like his worldview, and I think he's a good person. But he said it loud. But that's where we're reaching now. We're reaching such a level of softness in society that people don't like the way I say things because it comes across too aggressive. I understand what they're trying to say, but what they're truly doing is broadcasting their ineptitude and their immaturity. If you told me something which was profound and I agreed with it, I wouldn't really care how you said it so much. In fact, the delivery vehicle I have opted to use, I've chosen because it's the most effective. And I believe that men should be as competent as possible, meaning if this is the most effective way for me to get my message across, this is how it should be done. And also, I don't see why men need to be meek and timid all the time. Who told men to be meek and timid all of the time? Why can't a man sit there and say, no, I believe this? These clowns will stand in a stadium and scream at the top of their voice for a sports team who don't give a shit about them.
To kick a ball in a net.
To kick a ball in a net. But they don't think that a man should be animated when discussing the truths of the world or the dynamics he should have with his wife or how his children should be raised. I believe what I say, and I'm going to express the emotions I feel as I say it, how I see fit. And if you are such a stupid person, you can't listen to the message without getting offended by how it's said, well, then perhaps you're already too far gone and you're too broken. That's fine. You're just going to have to go and stay a dummy and stay an idiot. And one of the best things about being at the upper echelons is that I don't really need, I guess you do break the paradigm and you break the final wall. And I kind of feel like I've reached a point now where I don't need people to agree with me. I don't care if everybody watches this and doesn't agree with me anymore. It doesn't affect my life. It doesn't matter. I don't need to say things people want to hear to get big. I don't need to say things people want to hear to get paid. I can just say what I truly believe and what I truly think. And I think we need to bring back passion in general. I think men should be passionate about what they think. Feminists are passionate, aren't they?
That's why the show's called The Passionate Few.
Well, absolutely. Have you ever heard anyone tell a woman off or a feminist off for being too passionate about what she says or how she says it, or being too emotional about how she says it? It's just another, I feel like it's a cope. I kind of feel like there's a lot of people, someone who would say that I agree with Andrew, but I don't like the way he says it. I think what they're really trying to do is put a shield over themselves. I don't think they're man enough to sit there and say, I agree with Andrew Tate.
To stand on it.
Yeah, to stand on it. I agree with Andrew Tate, because it's smoke. I agree with Andrew Tate, but the way he says some things. And then someone will come back, well, you agree with Andrew Tate? Well, no, the way he says things is wrong. And they're just trying to set up their escape route in advance because they're a coward.
They do that with Trump too. A lot of people say that about President Trump.
I bet they do. Yeah, of course they do. So it's just cowardice. And I've yet to meet anyone who says that to me in person, and I'm sure these people do exist, and they're going to have to sit in their life and half believe and half commit to things. I don't know how you expect as a man to get anywhere in life if you half commit to anything anyway. You have to be the kind of person who constantly and fully, endlessly commits with absolute devotion. You have to be all in. So if you're going to sit there and agree with everything I say or anyone says, and then be too afraid to even admit that, well, then you have a much deeper problem.
Yeah, and to zoom in on it, there's something I heard super interesting, and that's related to IQ. Like people talk about IQ tests or how they measure intelligence. And what's interesting is they said that, people hear the word intelligence, maturity, understanding, But if you zoom in, what's really interesting is that intelligence is measured by an individual's ability to make refined distinctions about a set of data, right? Refined distinctions. So for example, to make the point clear, a cup of water.
Yeah.
This is a cup of water. A more intelligent person would say, this is a glass with X amount of water. A more intelligent person would say, this is this type of glass with this amount of water that's this tall, that's shaped in this particular way. And so it's about the nuances and having the mental ability to understand those refined distinctions. And I think society, by and large, just wants the quickest label, and they don't want those distinctions because those distinctions force them to confront themselves and confront truths that society doesn't want you to, because the more vague you are, the more society can control the frame of what it is.
Oh, absolutely. And also, people don't understand that when you're doing podcasts or you're talking on the internet or you're talking about subjects in general, you don't have time to cater for every possible eventuality.
Yeah.
I sit here and I say men are physically stronger than women, and often feminists will then come with exceptions to the rule. I don't have time to say men are physically stronger than women, except for this woman, this woman, this woman, or in this particular tribe or this particular country, or this subset of data. You can't even communicate that way.
Yeah, you'll spend your whole time being politically correct and miss the message in the process. So.
Absolutely. And my only goal as I continue is to become more abrasive and more offensive. So if anyone's upset with me so far, they have a rude awakening coming. Because my only goal, especially once I beat this Matrix attack, is to be worse than ever before. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, more passionate.
Because there's ways you can say things which are deliberately abrasive. And sometimes, depending on who I'm discussing and who I'm arguing with, or who I'm debating with at the time, I might choose to be deliberately abrasive. I can say men are physically stronger than women. I can say females are weak. I can say things which are deliberately designed to be abrasive at the time, and sometimes I'll do that because I find it entertaining.
And it doesn't mean you don't love women or respect women or see the value in them.
I find it crazy that there's anyone out there who sits and thinks that I wake up and I hate women. I would argue that these male feminists, these weirdos, they hate women more because they're the ones who are constantly rejected by women. Like, why would I hate women? I've had no negative interactions with women. My life doesn't have any current negative interactions with women. I have a happy relationship with women. I have children with women. I have happy, I don't understand this worldview where you're gonna wake up and say, Andrew hates women. Why? Because I said that men are physically stronger and we should protect them? Because I think that men are better at certain things and women are better at certain things? I don't even think they truly believe it. They either say it deliberately because it's weaponized virtue, or they're just repeating what they heard. And a lot of people just repeat what they heard, as we discussed earlier. They don't have any true basis for any of these things. There are rappers who sing about bitches and hoes. No one says they hate women.
Yeah, people sing along to the songs. Yeah, in the club. Yeah, exactly.
No problem.
It's funny. It's funny you see that in Western society. Obviously, throughout the years, it's gotten progressively worse. But the same woman that'll argue, "Oh my God," and not want to hear the philosophies and nuances, has no problem singing along to the song about, for example, The Weeknd cheating on multiple, and they sing along and they dance to it and they love it. But the second it's communicated with nuance intellectualism, it's like, whoa, 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 hey, you got to draw the line somewhere.
Don't you think it's scary that there's so many people going through life who literally don't think?
Yeah, limited depth. Yeah.
They don't think about anything.
Yeah, surface level. They don't go deep. They go wide, not deep.
And these are the people who are weaponized against humanity as a whole. You talk about the Matrix movie and they say anyone who's not unplugged can become an agent at any time. That's absolutely true. There are people who are not unplugged from the Matrix who can morph into an agent in real time. You'll watch them do it, just like in the movie where they change and they become an agent. If you mention certain subjects to certain people, you'll see their whole face instantly change and they start repeating CNN. They become an agent for the Matrix. And it's like I don't know if it's a fear mechanism where they're just afraid to hold a view which is counter to the narrative of the society they live under, or if it's trained into them from a very young age through brutal conformity of the mediocrity of their parents. I'm not sure what it is. But it's kind of scary that there's so many people out here in the world who literally just do not think. I try very hard now that I'm successful to avoid these people. And I do a pretty good job of never interacting with them ever outside of the internet. But I don't know. I've tried to imagine myself living a life like them. Like, what is the life now? If you wake up and you're a man and you do what you're supposed to do, you do what you're told to do, what is your life? You wake up, you go to school, you go to college, you get in debt, you go to university, you get in debt, you get a job, you find a woman,
she is, of course, equal to you in every way. So she's some type of feminist.
Yeah. But at the same time, you got to open the door for them, be a gentleman, take care of them, but we're equal.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to.
Right.
But I don't know if you'd even have the Constitution to do those things. You're probably going 50-50 on the bills, which means she doesn't respect you properly anyway, not truthfully, because you're not a provider to her.
Have you ever gone 50-50 on a bill with a woman?
Absolutely never. I never would. No.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining the man's life who's living the way he's supposed to live, and it just sounds dire. It sounds desperate and miserable. Mm-hmm. You're in debt. You have a wife who maybe you can convince to have one kid, and then eventually you're going to end up divorced, and you're going to be sad and lonely and miserable, and of course it's all your fault because you didn't respect her feelings enough. You did something wrong at some point. And you're working away at your slave job, and perhaps you'll be able to retire when you're 77. And it just sounds like destitution. Mm-hmm. So if the path that the Matrix has laid out for the average man is so brutally terrifying, I'm not sure why anybody is adopting any of the thinking that the Matrix wants them to have. You can see as a man what the Matrix wants you to become and the life they want you to live. So you should have enough brain to sit and say, well, I don't want any of that. So if I don't want any of it, why do I even want to adopt part of it or half of it? Why do you want to adopt any of their thinking if it's all just based towards reducing your masculine imperatives to the point where you'll accept that? A man won't accept a sexless marriage where his woman doesn't respect him. A man won't accept being in debt his whole life and not having financial freedom. A man won't accept being mocked and not respected or not being allowed to say his opinion in the workplace because he'll get fired. A man won't accept these things. So the only way they get you to accept these things is to destroy your baseline masculinity in the first place. Because then you're not a man anymore. You're a neutered version of a man. And you'll sit there and you'll accept this subpar reality, which is why they're attacking masculinity so heavily, so they can get you to adopt and agree with this garbage life they've laid out for you. All of it is terrifying. I find it remarkable that anybody believes any of this.
And one of the things I love about you, man, is like you have the balls to say what a lot of people think. Like I can't tell you how many people in positions of power agree with you, but because of the Matrix, because of getting paid, because of the people, they got to stay quiet and they champion you kind of behind the scenes. But then you get all the, you get all the heat.
I get all the smoke
for being the guy. Literally, you get all the smoke.
Yeah.
But it's something that I've seen recurring in your life, from the chess early on to fighting. Right? How did kickboxing? How did that affect your persona? What impact did that have on you? Obviously, the career a little bit. But obviously, fighting, there's a parallel to life. What influence did kickboxing play in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the rawest and most pure form of competition. It's always been the only competition throughout humanity for a very long time.
Mano y mano.
Of course. I mean, you can put a ball in a net if you want. I mean, it just feels so asinine to become extremely good at putting a ball in a net. I don't want to insult footballers. They make a lot of money and they're talented. And they train hard. I have respect for all of them. But it just feels like if you get to wake up one day and say, Andrew, okay, you have to become an athlete. Do you want to be able to destroy men with your bare hands for the rest of your human life? And as you walk through Earth, know that you're a weapon of war. Mm-hmm. Or put a ball in a net. It just feels pretty easy choice to me.
Yeah.
And before all these sports, which are just watered down versions of war, there was simply fighting. So I fought because I think that all men want to fight. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine waking up being a man and not wanting to fight.
Mm-hmm. For something meaningful.
Just, you want to fight. I'm sure there's men who don't feel this way, but when I wake up in the morning, I have my 15 coffees and I want to fight. That's what I want to do. And whether that's fiscally make as much money as possible, whether that's combat the Matrix and their narratives, or whether that was going in the ring and beating the shit out of somebody. I wanted to fight. Back then I had no money. I had no influence. It was almost before the internet, 15, 16 years ago. There's nothing else I could do constructive with my masculine energy besides fight. So then you have to choose. Do I fight for a government, which doesn't care about me, or do I fight for myself and try and pay my bills? And I decide to fight for myself. I think that warrior urge is inside of every single man. Well, it must be, because if you look at history, that's all we've ever done is fight. All we ever did was get in large gangs and large groups, call them armies, call them whatever you want, nation states, and we just go to war. And I think in the modern society now, most men dedicate that energy towards making money, which they should do if they're healthy, towards conquest. But I just wanted to fight, and I couldn't think of another way to do it. What we're doing right now is a fight. You're trying to get as many views as possible and get your YouTube channel as large as possible. That is war against all the other YouTube channels. You should just turn up and punch him in the face. Get it on. But that's the human instinct. So I fought because I couldn't find a better outlet, and then I retired because I found another outlet.
How old were you when you retired?
30, and then I fought a couple times since when I was like 33. I took fights on 1 day's notice.
To touch base real quick on kickboxing too, I do want to ask, what did it teach you in terms of the ability to like conquer your own mind, right? Because I'm sure there was times early on as you were growing where you could be intimidated by something. Of course, you're Andrew Tate, so barely intimidated.
Well,
but it teaches you to fight against the resistance, right? Like what also, and the reason I ask is because, you know, I've talked to a lot of high level people and you'll find early on that there's a lot of fighting background or wrestling. It teaches you how to get out of a pinch, that there's always a maneuver out of something that feels impossible to get out of.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, like what are some parallels like that kickboxing taught you on a tactical level for life?
I think that a lot of people who are afraid to do something like professional fighting imagine that the fighters are not afraid, which is not true. True bravery is to be afraid and do it anyway. If you're not afraid, you're not being brave. It's easy to do something you're not afraid of doing. Well, then you're not a brave person in the first place. If you're something wrong with you in your head and you're psychopathic and you can get in the octagon for essentially a fight to the death with a man who has dedicated his life to being good at fighting to the death, and you have no nerves whatsoever, then there's something wrong with you and you're not brave, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Fighters are afraid, but we do it anyway. And I think that's a good mantra for life, to be afraid, but do it anyway. That's the whole point of life. That's how you're going to get most things done, whether it's business or anything else. And you become very good with nerves, and you become very good with a poker face, and you become very good at doing the things you need to do regardless of how you feel at the time. You may feel intimidated, or you may feel nervous, or you may have a bad day, you may have a cold, you may be tired, who knows? But you have to fight on that day at that time. It's showtime, so it has to be done.
Right.
And I think it's a good mantra for life overall, and it, especially when they threw Tristan and I in jail, for example, which we can talk about later on. But when they throw you in jail, obviously you're about to walk into a Romanian dungeon. You're not sure what it's like, and Tristan and I looked at each other and kind of smiled because we knew it's like walking into the octagon. It's the same thing. You don't know where you're going to be. You don't know what the other guys in there are going to be like. You just have to poker face it and act the way you're supposed to act, regardless of how you feel. And I think that's the true masculine imperative anyways. And aren't men supposed to go through life doing what they're supposed to do because it needs to be done, as opposed to doing what they feel like doing? And I think one of the biggest problems with the world today is that men keep talking about how they feel. There's not a single man around me who says, I feel. Like, I live with guys and we have this big house and we're all having fun all the time. And I'm trying to think of a man around me who says, I feel. Because nobody cares. Why would I care how you feel? Why would life care how you feel? Society doesn't care how men feel. So if nobody cares how men feel, why do they care how they feel? You wake up and you have a list of things that need to be done. You're either going to do them or you're going to make excuses. And how you feel has no bearing on that list. The list must be completed irregardless of how you feel. So why are we even putting importance on those feelings? I think you learn to ignore feelings early on. You can learn to ignore pain and many other things. And I think that's the best way a man should be. I think that's how you become brutally competent and competitive.
And you live your life by your values, not your feelings per se. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And your values are going to come with duties and tasks, right? If you have values, whatever they are, then you're going to have to sustain those values. You can't sit, well, some people do. I said you can't, but some people do exactly this. They say, I value X, but they won't work to support X, or they won't work to prove X. If you don't work for something, or you're not prepared to suffer or struggle for something, then you don't love it and you don't believe in it anyway. If you love a woman, you'll struggle to keep her. If you love a country, you'll struggle to defend it. If you love a sport
or business,
a business, you're going to work for it. If you're not working for it, then you don't love it anyway. So the values come with obligations, and those obligations are to fulfill your duty irregardless of how you feel. And there's a lot of men out there, especially in the world today, who only want to do things because they feel a certain way, not understanding that that doesn't make them competitive anymore. The biggest question I get asked all the time is, hey, I lack motivation. And it's an annoying question to me because so do I sometimes. I don't always feel motivated to go to the gym. I don't always feel motivated to work. I don't always feel motivated to do what I need to do, but I do it anyway. It's called discipline.
Yeah.
And if you're going to wake up every day and lack the motivation to do what should be done, and compete against people who will do it irregardless of how they feel, you're going to perpetually and forever lose. In fact, it makes you a child to even wake up and say, when you're asking someone for motivation, what you're effectively doing is saying, make me want to do it. Please make me want to do it. I don't want to do it. Make me want to. No, you have to do it. Or you can stay a fucking loser.
What do you do on a day-to-day to cultivate the confidence? Because I think one of the things that hundreds of millions of people, billions probably at this stage, respect about you is that there's no denying people can love you, hate you, have opinions, but nobody denies you're a confident motherfucker.
Yeah,
So is that something that is like just identity based, or is that something you cultivate? Are there any things day to day you do to strengthen it?
I know what I'm good at, and I make sure I focus on it.
And you delegate the rest or outsource
And I
the
delegate
rest?
the rest or outsource the rest. I know exactly what I'm good at doing, and I think that you're going to be confident if you do things you're good at doing most of the time.
And have the self-awareness to accept that. Yeah.
And also, I'm not afraid of anything. I want to make this clear. I'm sure when they finally point a gun to my head, I'm going to be a bit nervous. But all in all, it is what it is, and we all live one life. And I think the best thing you can do as a man is try to make your mark on the world and make people understand how and why you think, and try and be a positive influence and have children. And I've done all of those things. What are they going to do? Throw me in jail? I mean, I'm confident because I just don't fear any of these idiots anymore. When the BBC turn up and they try to intimidate me, because that's what they try to do.
I saw that interview. They framed a question, and right away you nailed them not accepting the frame.
Of course.
I love that.
They're
yeah.
clowns. And when they try to intimidate me and they come with their agendas and they expect me to be scared of these people, I don't fear these people at all because I don't respect these people. So I guess confidence just comes from the fact that I know at the end of the day I'm going to be okay. And I have a lot of faith in myself, and I also have a lot of faith in future Andrew. I feel like if I'm pretty good now, I'll be better in the future. So as the Matrix attacks increase, or as my enemies get more inventive or more creative, or whatever comes my way, I'm sure at the age of 50, I'll be more capable of dealing with it than I am today. So it is what it is. And I also enjoy the struggles of life. I enjoy the war. I like when, it's incorrect for me to say I like when bad things happen. That's the wrong way to look at it. But there's certainly a part of me that gets excited. Maybe that's the warrior in me. But when they say, even when I think back now, I'll be completely honest with you. If I could go back retrospectively and avoid going to jail, I wouldn't have done it. If I could have stopped it, I wouldn't have stopped it. Because now I think about it, it was exciting.
And you were living out of your values. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's war. It's exciting. Like, bad things can happen. It's a terrible experience. You're going to suffer. I enjoy all of those things. Retrospectively, maybe some men are different, but I think if you ask the average man to think back on the times of his life that he really suffered or he hated, usually if they're a good man, retrospectively, they're glad they happened. At the time, you may hate them, but not very many men are going to sit and say, oh, I wish I didn't have to go through that. Maybe the loss of a loved one or something.
Sure.
But in general, I think they're the best things that ever happen to people.
That's when you grow the most. You have conversations with God. You're introspective. You grow the most. Absolutely. Tough times.
And those are your stories.
Yeah.
If you sit a man down and say, tell us a story, and what's he going to say? Oh, I went to the club and I got bottles and I got a girl. Is that your story? I mean, maybe it is for some guys, but I think the coolest stories are going to be the war stories.
How you conquered war.
Absolutely. So,
how you beat the Matrix.
well, bad things are supposed to happen to us, and my confidence comes from the fact that I'm not afraid of any of these things because I know they're supposed to happen, and I know that they're a massive opportunity, and I feel excited by them.
What are some of the things that people would be shocked to know maybe you deal with? Not on an insecurity level, because I would ask, what are some insecurities you have, but what are some things?
That's a good question. What are some insecurities? Now, let me steal it from you. What are some insecurities?
Things you're worried about.
Let me see if I can even think of any. And everyone's going to but people are going to call me disingenuine, but I'm not being disingenuine because, I'll give you an example. I had a guy message me, and he said, Andrew, I don't know what to do. I'm 5'1". I'm really short. I'm training and I've got lots of money and I'm really short and I don't know what to do. I was like, bro, do exactly what you do if you were tall. I mean, maybe not play basketball, but be confident and be your best self and train as hard as possible and be a good person and make money and be dedicated and be diligent. Why would anything change? You are who you are and you play the hand you have. Just like in poker, you can't help if you have pocket aces or something else. You play the hand and that's how you win the game.
Yeah,
you can win a game with nothing.
Yeah.
You can bluff your way through it. So when I say I don't have insecurities, it's not because I can't think of anything about myself that isn't perfect. It's just because I don't care. It doesn't matter. This is who I am. This is the life I'm going to live. I'm going to do my absolute best, irregardless of what I have. Heaven forbid something bad happens to me. I'm in a car crash and I lose my arm. Well, I'll still get up and just train and work and see my children, and I'll do exactly the same things I'm doing now. What can you do? So I think insecurities are a waste of time. I think it's a waste of cognition to even sit and consider an insecurity. I am who I am. So I don't know. I can't think of any insecurities. I can't.
Were you ever insecure with the ladies coming up?
Well, you're nervous, I guess.
Andrew Tate used to get nervous with women?
Well, when you're
Wow.
a teenager, I think everyone is.
Yeah.
But I also think the dating market was different back then because you actually had to go up to girls and talk to them.
And they weren't Instagram famous with guys that'll fly them out to Dubai the second they turn 18, 19.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, the whole world was a completely different place. You'd have to go up to girls and say hello for the first thing, which most modern men probably don't do anymore because it's all online or Instagram, etc. So that was a huge part of it. And secondly, I guess the counter to that is that women were a bit more humble because they weren't getting flown around the world from their Instagram profiles. So there was interesting dating market, which is completely gone now. Most men now, I don't think cold approach women very often. Maybe they do, I don't know.
And you talk about something beautiful. I was listening to an interview you did recently, and you talk about how, now there's a stigma if men go up to a woman and say they're beautiful or talk to them like, oh, he's cringe, he's a creeper. But you made a great point because you said everybody in this room right now is here because a man approached a woman and they had sex.
Oh, absolutely.
And some of the greatest things in the world were created as a byproduct of that, but yet now we stigmatize it like you're weird.
Well, it's an attack on masculinity along with everything else, but now it is some form of sexual assault or some form of perversion. Did you ever see that video? I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. It was a woman walking through New York City and she recorded herself for 8 hours walking around in circles like a dummy. And then dudes would say, hey, you're good looking. And she'd pretend she was offended. And then she got her editing crew together and sat there with her cat. And because she has no boyfriend. And edited all the video together and took that 8 hours of footage and condensed it down to 3 minutes of being asked if she's okay and pretended how she's victimized.
Yeah, and the world jumps on the bandwagon in comments and
Oh,
my
no,
God, the
men
world
said
rallies.
hello. But that's exactly the reason we're all here right now. A man at some point went up to a woman and said hello. And if you ask a woman, she wants to be courted and chased. Women love being chased. Anyway, of course, like all things, this is nuanced. I'm not saying be a stalker. I'm not saying be a creep. Obviously, there's some dudes who are weird, etc. But not too long ago, yes, a man had to go up to a woman and say hello. And that's changed now. It's moved all to this digital realm. And then in the digital realm, we're just measuring people based on social media profiles, which is obviously a highlight of their life. And then women are becoming more and more deluded in their expectations because they're looking at these men who have these certain lifestyles and certain capabilities and they believe they deserve them. And they're also going to attach to that the insanity and of monogamy to that. I find that really interesting. That a woman will sit there and go, I'm simple. I just want a man who's rich and tall and strong and smart and charismatic and interesting and spontaneous and loves my cat and cares about my feelings and likes to talk and likes the same movies as me and wants to hang out with my family and he has a Lamborghini and he has lots of money and we go on holidays and he has a big house and he's really muscly. That's all I want. And he only wants me. He doesn't want any other girl, just me. It's clown world. And then you have the average man who would even offer them some degree of normalcy. They'll ignore because they want this guy, thinking that in their hubris, because women can be self-deluded sometimes, that they're, I don't know, the only pretty girl who wants this guy. And they end up sharing him, and then they have a mental breakdown over it, and they either stay or they run and try and find another dude. And
hypergamy.
Yeah, and it goes over and over and over again. So that's the modern dating market, which is extremely difficult, I'd estimate, for most men to navigate.
What do you think are the consequences of that scaled out over the next 10, 20, 30 years and beyond? Because the world is going that way.
It's kind of interesting. We're going back to the way, they say history repeats and the world is cyclical. Aren't we going back to how it used to be? Didn't kings have like 10 wives? And the average man was just dying in a war somewhere, suffering?
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting there now. I'm sure I wouldn't know, but if you were a world-renowned billionaire, you'd have as much option. You'd have as many options as you liked.
Yeah.
So I think it's always been that way. Kings have always had more than one. And I don't do many dating podcasts anymore, but the odd clips I see, you see the odd idiot women, or there's some guys who are sitting there saying, high-value men don't cheat, and there's always women saying, no, real men don't cheat. Da-da. Listen, it's the women who are deciding to share these famous men. It's the women who are deciding to chase famous men who have unlimited options. It's the women deciding to chase a man with resources. You are making the choices, and then you're surprised that you're ending up in the situation you're in. this is human nature.
And you talk about something really interesting. I was listening to the George Janko podcast, and you were talking about, you talked about the concept of polygamy, right?
Yeah.
Men who have multiple, women or partners, and you were saying that, society stigmatizes it. And it's shocking to people to hear this, but if you open your mind and kind of hear the rationale, I think it's really interesting because you talk about, well, people criticize that, but then the same guy who's loyal behind the scenes is, masturbating or watching porn or going to strip clubs or whatever it is.
The masculine imperative is to conquer, like we said earlier. It's our imperative to make as much money as possible and be as big and strong as possible and be as important as possible and to conquer land, to go and take something from someone else. And by extension, the masculine imperative is to conquer. That can also be applied to sexuality. We're interested in conquest. So if a man has the capability to sleep with lots of women, he probably will sleep with lots of women. And this idea that men are loyal or that women are obsessed with this idea of having a man which is loyal is actually quite interesting because I think it's one of the main reasons women end up so heartbroken and so bitter in the first place.
And the divorce rates are so high, women mostly initiate them.
Of course, but women, what they do is they get with a guy, he's a good guy, they love him, he's their best friend, he takes care of them. They're happy. The man cheats. They get heartbroken. They leave the guy. They get with another guy who they love less than the first guy, who wasn't even as good as he was. He cheats. They leave him. They get with another guy. And after 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 or however many it takes for their heart to finally die, then they end up just on the carousel of whoredom, doing OnlyFans. And it's not because they intended on being that type of person. It's not because they want to be promiscuous. It's because of their obsession with loyalty that they end up just running from place to place. The truth is, and I say these things, and I know there's a lot of people who counter my view, but most of them are not important enough for me to talk to, so I don't care. But the truth is, men have an innate desire to conquer. Masculine sexuality is very different than female sexuality. Men act in a certain way because we don't feel the consequences of those actions like a woman does, e.g. pregnancy. And this obsession with loyalty is so asinine because it's not even real. To go into the point you made earlier, women say, oh, but my man's loyal. Well, there's 2 points to that. The first thing is, if he has no other option, he's not really loyal. If you go into a grocery store and they only sell apples, and you buy an apple every day, you're not allowed to tell me you love apples because you don't have any other choice. It's when you go into a grocery store and they have a whole wide array of fruit, and you buy an apple 6 days a week, but on Wednesdays you take a banana or grape. Then you're allowed to say, I love apples, because you have options and you still choose the apple the majority of the time. A lot of women say, my man's loyal. It's like, listen, if he could fuck, he would. No girl wants him. Congratulations. That's the first thing. The second thing is, this whole idea of loyalty, once again, is skewed because all these men who are in faithful, monogamous relationships are talking to webcam girls or buying OnlyFans or masturbating to porn or trying to fuck girls who won't fuck them, chasing girls on Instagram who ignore them anyway. Is that loyalty? That's just failure. That's not loyalty. That's just failing to succeed. Why are you going to be with a failure? What kind of woman wants to be with a failure? My woman needs to believe in me. If I say to her, I'm going to get that chick, I better get her. If I was a chick and my dude said, I tried to cheat on you, but she rejected me, I'd be more off put than if he cheated. I'd be like, you couldn't even get the pussy? What am I with you for then? Crazy. So the whole thing is messed up because it's not natural human nature. And I think that it's interesting because you can apply it to so many things, and I understand how the nuclear family and monogamy and society can function under that paradigm well. I understand why it's being promoted or why it was promoted for so long for the stability of a society. I understand all of these things very well. I'm just commentating. I'm just making social commentary. But for the longest period of human time, it was kings, men of resource and capability and status with multiple partners. This is how it was. And then most men couldn't find a partner at all. And I feel like we're returning to that point. And people often ask me what we should do about that, and I don't know what they want me to do. I'm just making the point of where we're ending up. And women are driving this. Women are driving this through their choices and through their obsession with resource and finance and status and choosing these men. And it's also very interesting because they don't expect any of these men to ever truly be loyal at the beginning. It's only after they get their claws into him that they start having a mental breakdown if he gets another girlfriend because they're jealous. But if they look at him from the start, they know what they're going to get. And they still choose it. So that's where we are.
It's very interesting. And it's funny because a lot of people had these opinions, but before you came into the world, like out of nowhere and became the biggest thing on social media.
Men cheat sometimes. Men cheat. If your man pays your bills and he loves you and he'd die to protect you and he takes care of you and he's fixed all your problems and he forgave you that time you crashed the car like an idiot and he cheated, just stay with him. Get over it.
Mm-hmm. Get over it. Mm-hmm. That's the way humanity's always been. There's so many psyops we're operating under where we're going to come along and pretend humanity hasn't always been the same way all of the time. That's the way it's always operated between men and women, to a degree.
Do you think that's the most controversial point that you have? Obviously, you have many, but is that the one you get most of the heat for? Or what do you think is the biggest opinion you have that gives you a lot of heat?
You know, it's interesting because I probably should know the answer to this question, but I don't listen to any of the opinions anyone has of me very often. I see clips that go viral. I've seen some guys sit and say, high status men don't cheat. And I look at him and say, bro, your arms are skinny. Shut up, bro.
Now, okay, question I have for you, and we didn't touch on base on this, but when you were young, was it a big dream to be rich as fuck?
Yes, because money is freedom. And anybody who says they don't care about being rich is saying they don't care about being free.
What was the dream for you, though?
Freedom. Money is freedom. Anyone who says, oh, I don't care about money, I don't care about fancy things. It's not about fancy things. It's the ability to go where you want and sleep where you want and say what you want and think what you want and talk to who you want and even get the girl you want and drive the car you want and eat the food you want. To sit and say, I don't care about money is to say, I don't care about my own personal freedom. I have no problems being a slave and being constrained by the financial system and being told what to do because I don't have any desire to be free.
What books did you read to cultivate that desire early on when you decided you want to get rich? Or, you know what I mean?
I'm not really a big reader. I just understood that there was a version of reality that I had yet to experience. I saw my parents struggle to pay the bills, and I saw my friends struggle to pay the bills, and I saw everyone around me unable to eat, and then I saw certain people with $500,000 cars, and I understood there must be a different version of reality. There must be a version of making money, a version of banking, of finance, of education, of knowledge, of network, of connections that existed outside the matrix. There has to be a different world. Mm-hmm. This world I'm in, everyone's poor, this is garbage. That world, I can see people are living a reality that I can't even fathom. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even imagine having $500,000 for a car.
Or a $500,000 watch.
Or 20 of them. But I couldn't imagine it.
How many watches do you have?
How many watches do Decot have? Or I have? Decot took my entire watch collection when they arrested me. I had 21 diamond watches and they took them all. And my first phone call from jail was to order them all again. Because it annoyed me that they had all my watches.
What do you love about watches?
I just wanted my watches back.
Yeah.
So I spent another, I think it was $7 million on a bunch more watches from the jail cell. So now if I get my things back from the court, I'll have 2 of every watch, which would be cool.
Noah's Ark.
Yeah, I'll have 2 of every one. Yeah. Noah's Ark. I like that. Yeah. Noah's Ark. 2 of every one.
Batman, Batgirl. Now, what was your first luxury watch? Do you remember?
My first luxury watch wasn't even that luxury. It was a Hublot for 12,100 pounds that I bought in Westfields, London. And I remember walking past and I had 15,000 pounds in the bank, which to me at the time was a whole bunch of money. Yeah. And I saw it and I remember thinking, who can spend 12 grand on a watch? Just buy a watch. And I thought, well, technically I could, but it's all my savings. But technically I could, so I did it.
No, you said fuck it, did it?
Just fucking did it, yeah. Spent my money.
How old were you?
24, something like that.
And of course, everyone around you, honey, why'd you do that? Your mom, like,
of course, stupid. Don't spend all your money. Are you crazy? It's only for a watch.
Did it level you up mentally?
I've never really respected money like that. I've never really believed in saving money. Mm-hmm. I don't think, you can't save it faster than they can print it. Yeah. I think there's always a better way to blast money into something.
Do you do anything to, or at least early on, did you do anything to stay money motivated? I know there's a lot of people who talked about, you know, when they have reserves of cash to spend it, reinvest in themselves to level up. Not saying you did that per se, but was that a part of it? Like stretching yourself to level up kind of thing?
I know what you're saying. Yes is the answer, but I don't think it was thought of in that way. I literally just didn't respect money. I just thought, if I'm smart enough to make this money now, future Andrew will be smart enough to make more later, so it's going to be fine. I think that saving money is a scarcity mindset, and to a degree it's fear. Mm-hmm. I need to keep my money because in the future I might need it. It's just being a pussy. Yeah. Like if I need money in the future, I'll go make it. So I'm going to spend it all now. And if I need money, I'll go make some money. Yeah. And if I don't know how to make money, even better, because then I'll think of a new way to make money. Mm-hmm. I just never approached it from that fearful angle. And I literally looked at the watch and thought, who can spend 12 grand on just a watch? And then I realized that I technically could, but shouldn't. So I did it. And I was happy for like a full 45 minutes. And then I thought, well, this is kind of, I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have done this.
What
But then
other,
I just, you
what
just
other
get on with it.
watches in the collection do you have after that?
Oh, I have everything you can name now. I have a bunch of Pateks, I don't like RMs. But this is another thing that's weird. You know what's really weird about being famous?
Yeah.
You have to be super careful what you say.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I can sit here and name all the watches I have and like, right?
Right.
What I will do is boost the price of those watches, and those watches will begin to sell. And I'm not getting paid off of that. And then I'll say a brand I don't like, and then I'll meet the owner of that brand, and he'll be in a bad mood with me. And I'll be like, sorry, bro, I didn't mean to damage your business. I just don't particularly like those watches. So you end up sitting here thinking, you have to be careful what you say.
Yeah.
You have 59 cars. What's your favorite car? I was like, I meet the CEOs of these car companies. I can't sit and say which car is crap and which car is good. I mean, I could. They're all good at different things.
Okay.
I have 59 cars, and people ask me, what do I need 59 cars for? And I try and explain, it's like having 59 different types of cutlery. You know, you can have a fork, a spoon, a knife, and whatever other kinds. It depends what you're eating.
Right.
Sometimes the spoon is the best. Sometimes the fork is the best. Sometimes the knife is the best. It depends what you're eating. But my favorite car is 812 Ferrari. I think that is my favorite car. And
I love Ferraris. So I got a handshake. You to that
812
one.
Ferrari. I think that might be the best
Super
car.
fast.
Yeah, and I think it's the best car overall because it does so many things amazingly. But if I had to race myself around a track, then it would be a 765 McLaren. That is the fastest car, but it's not the best car. People think fastest is the best. That's not the case.
So what are the top 5? What would you name them, give or take?
I would say 765, 812, and then I'd probably choose 3 Aston Martins because I just love Aston Martins.
James Bond?
Yeah, that's me.
That's the James Bond in you, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
I like the SF90 Ferrari as well, to be fair to it.
Yeah, the Stradale SF90
Yeah, yeah,
Stradale. Yeah.
But I love all of my cars. I can't choose. It's like trying to choose between my wives. You can't make me do that on camera. I don't know. They're all good at different things.
What?
Depends. Do you want dessert? Do you want dinner? Like, do you want massage? You know, there's different things.
What was your first supercar?
My first supercar was an Aston Martin Vantage.
Really?
Yeah.
First
And
one.
I spent all of my money. When I say all of my money, I didn't have gas. All of my money on an Aston Martin. I thought, I don't need a nice place to live. I have an Aston Martin.
How old were you?
I'll get girls anyway. I don't need gas. I'll just borrow gas money.
Yeah.
I was borrowing gas money off my girlfriend.
No way.
Yeah, who worked a normal job in a spa for my Aston Martin Vantage at like 23, 24, around similar, just after the watch incident. I made some more money and spent all my money.
Yeah.
So I had this nice watch, this nice car, no money at all. Best days.
And you feel like the pressure of,
Damn, I missed them.
do you feel like the pressure of that leveled you up? I know that wasn't the intention per se, but I mean the fact, because I've heard that a lot. Like I've even heard Trump talk about early on, he had friends and business associates who they'd fly first class, even if it was a stretch, because it became the new standard, and then you start operating and making business moves to keep up that standard.
Absolutely.
Versus trying to hang on to what you got and that
Completely.
kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah.
You put pressure on yourself and you have bills to pay and you have no money in the bank and it has to be done. And hedonistic adaptation is a real thing. It's amazing how quickly you can adapt to a new standard of life and no longer appreciate it. I'll give you a very simple example. When I first started flying private, the first couple times, it was like, whoa, we haven't got to wait in the airport. Da-da-da. Now it's just flying. And it's inconvenient. It's annoying.
Yeah, I
I'm
can't
on a private jet, and everyone's like, wow, you're on a private jet with all these girls. I'm like, I hate flying. So you get used to it.
Yeah.
Hedonistic adaptation's a real thing, and it's good that you say this because the human mind is not very good at going backwards. You can drive a Toyota and be relatively happy, but to drive an Aston Martin and then drive a Toyota is a lot more difficult for your soul to accept. So it's good to put yourself in things like first class and these things and push yourself. But then you don't want to put yourself in these positions if you're a lazy idiot. You don't want to spend all your money on first class and then go home and go to sleep because then you're going to end up broke.
Yeah.
So you have to know it within yourself. If you're the kind of person who knows you're going to try your absolute best all the time and you're going to find a way to succeed, then yeah.
So you were
push the boat out.
you were never big at saving money?
I don't think I've ever saved money in my life. I don't save money now. If I have money in the bank, it's because I accidentally didn't spend it. If I get paid hundreds of millions of dollars and I haven't managed to spend it all, then I guess I've saved. But I didn't think, well, let me take this a bit and put this here. No. I accidentally saved because I've run out of things to buy. After 59 supercars and all these houses and 20 diamond watches and
you buy them all cash.
Yeah, all cash. I don't have any finance, any loans on anything. Now I own everything I could possibly ever desire. I guess I accidentally save money.
Yeah.
It's an accident.
There's nothing left to buy.
There's nothing left to buy. I focus on making as much as possible. I have zero concerns for saving. It's not something that really crosses my mind.
What about reinvesting or investments? Was that something you thought of? I mean, clearly not early on when you're buying the Rolex.
And this is another thing that's interesting because if you're successful at any business, you end up in the real estate business because you have to put your money somewhere.
Exactly.
So you end up buying a bunch of houses because there's nothing else to buy. You have to. And people, often broke people, will sit and say, oh, if I was rich, I'd just buy a few houses and then I'd have a house here and a house there. And cash flow. Not understanding that those houses need to be maintained and there's property taxes and there's work and your tenant didn't pay rent. You got to turn up with AK-47s and kick him out. And it's headache, it's work. And then it's international. Broke people always say, I'd have a house in Spain and a house in Miami. Oh, I'm sure you would. And what happens when your house in Spain is broken into and you don't visit it for 6 months? And it's full of squatters doing heroin. Like it's work, these investments. So real estate's a headache. And then a lot of other things on paper, which is not even real money, this stocks, bonds, all these garbage things on pieces of paper, they're great if you can find a way to keep hold of them. Because please remember, at any point in time, it's the same with real estate, to be honest, at any point in time, a judge who you've never heard of can stamp a piece of paper and decide that you don't belong, you don't deserve your things you've worked for anymore. They don't belong to you. You can buy a whole bunch of stocks and bonds and real estate, and then you can piss the government off, and then whichever agency can go to a judge and say you're a bad person, and the judge who's never met you, who doesn't give a shit, will stamp an order to confiscate your wealth, and there'll be a new piece of paper that comes to your door and says, this house you paid for ain't yours now. And you'll say, well, what was that then? So you don't even own any of that. Gold is hard to transport, it's heavy.
So what
cash is difficult. You can't really deal with cash anymore. There are some things I've found, but I don't.
Andrew Tate's investing tips.
I have to wait until I'm free from the Matrix attack. If I tell you what I've found, they're going to look for it.
Right.
You have to think outside the box. I mean, but real estate is great, but you have to sit and understand that.
What type of real estate? Can you talk about that you'd invest?
I can talk about this. If you're a man with balls, you're going to piss your government off. And when you piss your government off, they're going to come and take your house. And if you're sitting here saying, no, I'm not going to piss my government off, Andrew, because I'm not going to get famous on the internet and tell them they're all idiots like you do, because I'm a lot more sensible than you. Well, I will say the following, sir. When they come with COVID 2.0 and they tell you to put a mask on and you don't put it on, and you get a fine for not putting on your mask, a $200 fine, and you refuse to pay that $200 fine because you know it's unjust, they will go and put it to a bailiff, and they'll put the fine up, they'll add more money on top, and they'll put a court date on it, and they'll continue to amplify this fine until it's in the thousands and thousands, and you refuse to pay it, and then you'll go to court in front of a judge, and you'll explain to the judge why you didn't pay it, and the judge will tell you you should have paid it because it's public health, and it's very important. You'll say, I'm not going to pay this is garbage. I don't have to wear a mask. I'm a full-grown man. And eventually you'll get to a point where they say, fine, we're going to settle this debt you owe us. We're going to take your house. That's what's going to happen. Look at Canada if you don't believe me. Look at the truckers who tried to stand up for freedom. They all lost their houses, lost their pets, had their dogs euthanized. No one talks about it anymore. Everyone just forgot. Oops. So you don't own anything anyway. You don't own the house. You don't own the investments. You don't own anything but your heart and your soul and who you are. You don't own anything but your faith in God. And you own the skills you learn along the way. The best investment you could do if you're a kid and you manage to make $5 million is reinvest in learning how to speak properly, dress properly, train, get a personal trainer, learn how to fight, be strong, be interesting, and then go suffer somewhere. Go to Tibet and live in a monk, go live in with a bunch of monks for 6 months and come back with some stories. That's worth $5 million because it's hard to take from you. Unless they put you in jail, you are now worth money. You are. But for you to buy a $5 million house and go, oh, I've got an investment, great. You have an investment as long as you shut up. If you shut up and be a pussy, you own an investment. Congratulations. And as the enslavement continues, as it gets worse and worse, the barrier of, or the parameter of what you're going to be allowed to say is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. Right now, we can argue, sit here and make fun of people who say men can get pregnant. Our grandchildren's grandchildren will not be able to argue that point. It'll be an accepted fact that men can get pregnant, and if you argue against it, you're a bigot and you're dangerous, and your QR code on your forehead will be scanned by the facial recognition camera on the corner to let everyone know that it'll come up somewhere on a billboard, bigot, bad person. The AI machine will let everybody know that you're a thought criminal. That's what's gonna come. So you have to be very prepared for these things, and trying to invest money is actually one of the most stressful things in my life. It's stressful for me. It's kind of interesting. I've gone from completely broke to looking, I don't have a bank, to seeing some money somewhere
in the millions and millions and millions of dollars and realizing that I don't want to leave it liquid, I need to put it somewhere, and trying to find a place I can put it where it won't be stolen from me.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. It's harder than people think. It's not easy.
Yeah.
There's nothing. What do you do with it? It's difficult. And then you realize you need all these complicated legal structures and frameworks, and you need to get lawyers from 7 countries and accountants, and you have to go through all this Aikido and backflips and insanity just to try and
protect your assets.
Protect anything.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world, and that's why it always makes me laugh when people who have no money say, if I had your money, I'd just sit on a beach and I'd buy a few houses and live off the rental income. I never thought of that, genius. Oh, wow, you're so smart. No wonder you're broke.
So you think it's better to focus on the business?
I think it's better to focus on yourself. I think it's better to focus on who you are. I mean, if you live behind a brand, or if there's a brand you can reinvest in your business, reinvest in your brand, yeah, that's fine. But if you learn how to speak correctly, that's always going to be a net benefit. If you're as strong as physically possible, that will always be a net benefit. If you have interesting stories of suffering, if you can go through things that other people can't go through, that will always be a net benefit. If you have a strong network of people who know things and have connections, perhaps you know a guy who owns a bank in Lithuania, then that's going to be a net benefit. So if you get a bunch of money and you want to invest, your first investments should be in a personal trainer and training as hard as possible, going out there and suffering in some way, trying to join a private members club so you can get access to people who actually have importance in the world. You need to invest in yourself because it's hard to take things from you.
Yeah. You become the asset.
Because I'm me.
Yeah.
I know I can never go broke because I'm me. If they allow me to talk, unless they cut out my tongue, I'll make money. There will always be a company who will pay me to mention them. So I'm fine because I'm me.
How do you think the story ends with you, the Matrix? Because there's so much heat on you. I can't imagine a world where a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, people don't forever know the name Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
You know, escaping the Matrix, is there a world where you're left alone and they go, well, we just let him go. There's no jail, there's no people trying. Like, how do you see it ending in a semi-peaceful way where...
I don't think a lot of it's up to me.
It's up to Allah.
Absolutely. Since the dawn of human time, if you were a kingdom, if you were a king, you had a kingdom and your kingdom was under attack. Mm-hmm. So there's no such thing as having an empire without being attacked. It doesn't matter if you were the Ottoman Empire, it doesn't matter if you were the British Empire. If you had an empire, the fringes of your empire were constantly being tested and you were constantly being attacked. So the attacks come with the success. I think that is a universal constant. I think that there is a global awakening of consciousness happening right now as we speak, which is going to make it harder for them to attack me. I feel like certain political decisions, depending which presidents win and which direction society goes, will depend on how big of a public enemy I remain. Mm-hmm. I think my current legal case, I'm going to win, but I think it was a warning shot.
We believe in you, brother.
Thank you, bro. I think it was a warning shot, and I think if they hit me again, they won't let me off. And I don't think people at home understand that when a judicial decision affects the reputation of nations, it's not just about whether the person is innocent or guilty anymore. If you have a person who will affect the public consciousness in regards to believing in the mainstream media and affect the reputation of an entire sovereign nation, depending on whether he goes to jail or is innocent, they don't sit there and think, is he innocent or not? They sit there and think, what's the fallout for this person to walk?
If we let him go,
If we let him go.
It's not even about you anymore.
It's not about you now.
It's about setting an example if someone tries to be as loud as Andrew.
It's about so many things bigger than your innocence.
Right.
They can look and say, well, he is innocent, but this country will look bad, this government will look bad, this federal agency will look bad, this MSM will look bad, he's going to be more powerful than ever, he's going to have more influence, people are going to believe what he says, he's going to be able to cause this much trouble. They don't even look at innocence anymore. They look at the consequences of your innocence. And then they decide, well, you know what? There's too much fallout for him to be innocent, so he has to be guilty.
Yeah.
It's not about law. People don't understand this.
Yeah.
I think I'll beat this one, but I think it's a warning shot, and I think that they're gonna, if I continue to upset them, they're gonna come again, and that one I won't beat because they won't let me. I think this one they're gonna do relatively fair. I say fair as if I haven't suffered enough, but they're gonna consider this a warning shot. Warning shot, Andrew, only 3 months in a Romanian dungeon and 5 months on house arrest and all of your assets stolen and 2.5 years and $11 million in legal fees, and that's your warning shot.
Yeah.
Mess with us again, you're going to that room, you're not getting out. That's what I believe is going to happen, which will be a fun story because we both know I'm not going to shut up.
How do you sleep at night with this kind of pressure?
I don't feel like I have any other choice for the same reason you can walk outside knowing you might get struck by lightning.
because I don't feel like if I shut up, I would be a happy person. I don't feel like that's who I am. So I feel like I have to tell the truth of what I believe. And I'm just going to have to suffer the consequences of it. I don't feel like I have an option. If I had a choice, perhaps I'd be sitting in bed at night worried about, should I do this? But because I know I have to do it, you have to go outside, lightning might strike you. It is what it is. So the pressure's there and it's real, and I'm sure there's going to be a day I end up in a jail for a very long time, and I'm going to perhaps consider the idea of regret. For a fraction of a second, I'll consider the possible idea of regret, but it's not who I am.
Knowing what you
I know what's going to come. I've resigned to it. It's fine. It's fine. It's part of my story, and it's going to make a great story. So do it. Do it. The worst thing they could do is kill me now. Just proves me right. I'm not going to. I'll be dead. Go on, kill me. I just resigned to it. What's the point in being alive as a man if you don't live for anything bigger than yourself anyway? Am I going to live for myself and just hedonistically eat ice cream like a girl?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm rich now, so I'm just going to eat ice cream all day. No, I'm going to tell the truth, and if I have to suffer for it, then that's the consequences. It's fine.
I love that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about family, and obviously it's a very sensitive topic, but I'm curious for you, I know you have kids. What are ways in which you recommend people, not necessarily that you're the all end all be all of how they should, but just your personal philosophies on raising kids in, particularly a Western world, as the Western world starts to influence with the internet, the rest of the world? What are some things that you'd recommend for people who have kids in terms of how to raise them to protect them from the moral degradation of society?
It's difficult. It's really hard because you're fighting a war against the matrix, and they have more hours with your child than you ever will.
Yeah.
You need to have strong creeds within your household. You need to have strong creeds amongst you and your spouse. And you need to make it very clear and curate your child's reality, because if you're just going to allow them to be raised by the school system and YouTube, you're going to be very disappointed with the child they end up being. And like most things, it takes a degree of effort. And it also needs you to understand that your influence for 20 minutes a day can't often trump the influence of 12 hours a day of bullshit school and the internet. And it goes down to the same things we said earlier. I don't think most parents are too stupid to counteract the programming. I think they're too lazy or too arrogant. They're too lazy to bother trying to deprogram their children from the matrix mind they've learned, or they're too arrogant to believe they should have to. They sit and think, oh no, my kid will be fine. They know I don't believe in these things. Well, you don't talk to your kid very much. You're working. They're watching this crap on YouTube all day. So it's extremely difficult. You need to create their reality. Like everything in life, you need to work for it. Nothing in life comes easy. You need to sit and work and dedicate yourself. It's different for my level of finance than it is for the average person. The average person has a harder job. If I wanted to make sure my kid wasn't raised with LGBT insanity, I would send him to school in Saudi. I can do that. I'm rich.
Why Saudi?
Well, it's an Islamic country. And what did we talk earlier about religion and how they know what's right and they know what's wrong. But I am rich. Most average people can't just send their kids to a school in Malaysia or Saudi or Indonesia or any country that they believe would teach them the things they want to learn. So it's a very difficult thing to do. It takes work and it takes effort. And I think most parents would know how to do it. They're not too stupid. They're just too lazy or they're too arrogant. And your child is susceptible, and it's going to adhere to a power structure. There's a power vacuum inside of their mind, inside of their soul, and they're going to adhere to a power structure they end up respecting. And if they don't respect you and your gravitas, they're going to end up respecting the school system, and we know what garbage that is, and YouTube, and we know what garbage that is. So good luck.
Did having children or a daughter change you in any way?
Having children is so remarkably easy. I heard everyone talk about how difficult it was, but then obviously after having kids, I wasn't surprised by. Most people find everything difficult. Going to the gym is difficult, making money is difficult, waking up is difficult, not being a lazy idiot is difficult. Having kids is easy. You make sure that they don't eat too much food, and you make sure they do as you say, and you make sure they say please and thank you. I'm not trying to belittle it, but how difficult is it to raise a 3-year-old? Say thank you. Thank you. Okay, sit down. Sit down. Quiet. Okay. How do you struggle with that?
Yeah.
Maybe some people do.
Do you
but
struggle?
People struggle with everything. I don't know. People struggle to be anything in life. Having kids is remarkably easy, and it's a blessing. There's nothing better than raising children.
Did it soften your heart, or did you find yourself growing in terms of the tenderness with the child or any of that?
I always knew I'm a soft person. I'm a nice person.
I get that vibe from you.
Yeah,
that people have a judgment, they judge you as a whole based on your political philosophies, and that's who Andrew is as a whole. They miss the
of course, but
tenderness.
Of course, but as a man, if you don't have that edge, if you don't have that competitive or combative edge, then what's the point in being tender at all anyway?
Right.
What's the point in me loving my kid if I won't kill the people who try and hurt her?
Right.
What's the point? I mean, maybe there's some men out there who are weak and would say, oh, I'm really loving. Okay, that's great until shit hits the fan. Then your love's worth nothing. My love's worth something because I'll go charge at gunfire. Your love isn't worth anything. If you're not combative as a man, then your love means nothing anyway. So you need to have that edge to you. I love my children absolutely, but I'm also not going to take any crap from them or anyone else. I'm not going to negotiate with a child.
Right.
My child are going to do as I say, and they're going to be versions of me, the masculine version or the feminine version of me, and they're going to be raised to my creeds, how I believe they should be raised. They're not the government's kids, and they're not YouTube's kids, and they're not school's kids. They're mine. And if I say something is right and wrong, that's how they're going to act. And I'm not apologizing for that. I'm not sitting here saying, people say to me, well, what if they don't want to? What if they want to be different? What do you mean they? What if they're 7. Since when do they get to decide how the world works? At 7. At 7, I was an idiot. So I know better. For the same reason I won't let them put their finger in a plug socket, I'm not going to let them do anything else unless I agree with it. Call me authoritarianism, call me bad person, whatever they're going to call me. But this is how children were raised for the longest period of human time, and I think that's why families stayed families. That's why families had honor, because they were raised to be a particular way because of the creed of their last name. That's how it's supposed to be. And my children will do the exact same thing.
What about your mom? What does she say?
She's proud of me. She's worried. She's concerned, like a mother should be. She tries to calm me down and say, is this all worth it? But that's the feminine frame. The feminine frame is always to try and avoid the war, like I said earlier on, to drag you back from battle because they want to keep you safe. That's how women operate, and that's what they're good at, and that's their role. But I'm a man now, and I tell her, look, I've got it under control. Everything's fine. I take care of her. She's very well looked after, and she's just going to have to let me go. I mean, she said, I'm glad I have strong sons. I couldn't deal with all this mess if you weren't strong. And I said, well, this mess wouldn't exist if I wasn't strong. I'd be working in Starbucks, full of vaccine. So you'd have to worry about something else. You'd have to worry about me having a random heart attack or not being able to pay your bills. So you always have to worry about something, Mom. At least you have to only worry about I say only. You have to worry. You don't have to worry about your bills being paid. You don't have to worry about my competence. You have to worry about them allowing me to survive. But the other way around, you'd have to worry about me getting up each day without wanting to shoot myself in the head because I'm a minimum wagee at 40. So there's no way out. War is certain for all of us. We're all fighting different battles. You can either suffer the intense pain it requires to become a somebody, or suffer the intense pain of being a forever nobody.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Yeah, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Oh, absolutely. Pain's there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, choose your hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about Tristan? What are Tristan's thoughts on this? I'm sure Tristan goes, Andrew, why are you doing all this shit, man? We could be living it up. I mean, have there ever been conversations like that?
You know what? Tristan doesn't say that. You know what? Tristan actually thinks the whole thing is super funny and hilarious. He thinks the whole thing is hilarious.
Yeah.
Tristan just laughs his way through all of it. He just is funny. He goes, I'm a human trafficker, you're a human trafficker, ha ha ha, and just laughs out loud. Calls himself a human trafficker to everyone, thinks it's funny. Just thinks the whole thing's a big joke. And it is a joke. It's clown world. It's clown world, and I'm trying to fix it and fight against it. He's accepted it's clown world and is enjoying the show.
And you guys have always had a strong brotherhood? There was never...
All the time. We weren't allowed to do anything else. My father wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
That's how we were raised.
Because I heard you guys like shared bank accounts, did everything together, supported each other.
Always.
Women, the whole thing.
Always. We've always been a team. We've always had each other's back. Doesn't matter what it was. And I think that that's the way men were initially raised and supposed to be. I think men have always operated that way. I think masculine strength comes from fraternity, from brotherhood. It's one of the reasons why it's under attack. It's one of the reasons why they don't want people to be that way anymore. Even, you talked about women, even if we had a heartbreak or a woman left us or whatever, it couldn't affect us properly like it affected most people because we were busy with our brother having a great time. So we've always had that unity, and that's a huge source of strength.
I love that, man. And then I want to ask 2 more questions, then we have a quick game, and then we're done.
Cool.
Is when the Andrew Tate legacy is complete, right? And you're dead, gone, and nothing but a pile of dust, as inevitably we all will be.
Yep.
What do you hope the Andrew Tate legacy was all about?
Well, I'm sure I wasn't right about everything. Perhaps only 99.9%. But I would like people to understand that I took the brave option always, that I had a bunch of other ways out. I never sold my soul or cowered like everyone else did. There's a reason why people with influence don't talk, but I continue to talk, and I think that's obvious to people at home now because I'm suffering the consequences. And As long as people will acknowledge I at least made the brave choice, even if they disagree with the choices I made, then I'd be pretty happy. Because I think that all the men of history that we remember were brave. Even if they made some decisions that were questionable or not everyone agreed with, they were known as brave. And I think that bravery is one of the most basic tenets of masculinity, which is lacking in the world today. A lot of people agree with the things I say or think things similar, but are afraid to say them. And I think bravery is one of the most important elements required to crack the matrix and defeat them. So the brave choice, perhaps I'll put that on my gravestone, the brave choice. We'll see.
Now, last question I have is, a lot of people look up to your story. They look up to the philosophies you share. People have their own dreams, ambitions. What's your best advice for people looking up to you? And a lot of people try to use business as a vehicle to escape their own, you talked about your humble beginnings. A lot of people have their own unique version of that.
Yeah.
What's Andrew Tate's best advice to make your dreams a reality, to beat the matrix, to break the chains of where most people are born and raised to live their dreams?
Sure, I'll give my best advice. My best advice is to stop trying to do anything by yourself, because you're competing against teams.
Who, not how.
Well, yeah, you're never going to be able to outcompete a team by yourself. This whole idea of Rambo, lone soldier is garbage. I can even talk about me. I make a lot of money with a lot of people. I have hundreds of people effectively I work with in different areas in different regards. I have a very large team of competent men. I'm a competent man, and I know hundreds of competent men, and we're all pushing in one direction. How can you as one person with your limited human time and space and energy outcompete us? You can't. You need to find people you can rely on and trust, which is actually the most difficult thing, because especially when money's involved, you'll start to learn that that's hard. But if you can build a true fraternity of people who are on your side, you can trust with your life, you can do amazing things. Jesus did amazing things with 12 disciples. It's amazing what you can do with a few good men. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself. So it starts with brotherhood. It starts with shared vision. It starts with shared dedication. It starts with creeds and ethos within that friendship group that allow you to be the strongest, most fearsome version of yourself. Everyone talks about the fact that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but then nobody curates the 5 people they spend time with. They forget the second part of the equation. If you only hang around with killers, you'll be a killer. And if you get a good team together, it's nearly impossible to fail. It's nearly impossible to fail if you're a good team all pushing in the same direction. I don't even think it's that difficult to do. You just need to be the kind of person who's waking up around people who are not allowing you to be anything other than your best self, and then you're going to win.
Profound. And how important is delegation, team building? A lot of people struggle with that early on.
Well, a lot of people struggle with delegation because they're lazy and they hire mercenaries. So a lot of people will come along and say, I want to start a business. I'm going to be the face of it, and then I'm going to hire this guy to do this. And that's fine, but then you have people who are only working for a paycheck. And if you're the face of it, but they don't respect how much you have suffered to be the face of it, which ties back into something I said earlier, then they don't think you deserve that position of being the face of it. Why are they doing all the nitty-gritty? And then you have resentment, and then you have problems within the team. If you had a leader who suffers and charges head first at the gunfire, like the general on his horse first, it inspires the troops behind, and if they believe in the mission, and they're not doing it purely for a paycheck, but because they believe in the mission, that's how you fight. That's how you have the most powerful army possible in like days of old. So delegation is very possible, but you have to be careful hiring mercenaries, because mercenaries are only there for the paycheck. You need people who have the same vision as you, the same obligation as you, the same duty as you, and will benefit from the results, shared ownership. There's a lot of things you can do. But I think a lot of it is down to ethos and culture more than even just delegation. I don't have anyone who works for me purely for a paycheck.
Yeah.
I would argue that most people who work for me, if I were to say, I'm not paying you next month, they'd say, cool, whatever, and just continue to do the job, so they don't care.
You got an A1 team around you, and I know a big part of it too is family, right?
Absolutely.
How important has that been for you?
Yeah, my cousins, my brother, a lot of the men in my family, we all work together. People say you shouldn't mix family and business, but I strongly disagree. Especially if you have a good family life and you already have a good hierarchy within the family, then it gets even better. But we all do our jobs and we all do them flawlessly, and I do believe you have to lead from the front. I'm the first person up, I'm the last person to sleep, and that's why I get to yell at anyone who doesn't do their job properly. So it's easy for me to run my billion-dollar company because I work hardest, and I'm always going to do that, and I have no problem doing that, and I think that's how it should be.
Fitness is a big part of the mind. So for me, one of the things I'm working on now is my fitness.
Yep.
How important has fitness been? Because it seems like it's been a reoccurring theme throughout your life to be physically fit. The mind gets as strong. When you strengthen the body, you strengthen the mind. How important has physical fitness been to your success, your mindset, your growth, making millions of dollars, having the impact you have. Like, what role has fitness played in that for you?
I can answer that question in lots of ways. The first one is the simple one of strong body is a strong mind. Secondly, there's a lot of discipline required in fitness, and discipline can be applied to universally to all things. Discipline is a skill you can pull out of your pocket and apply to anything. You can force yourself to do something you don't want to do because you're disciplined, not because you're motivated, like we said earlier on, not because you feel like doing it, but because you're supposed to do it. Thirdly, this is something that not many other people say, so I'm going to say it. There is a unspoken rule amongst men, and I remember a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, there were women on Twitter or women on the internet saying, when men meet, do they always think about the possibility of violence? Does that cross their mind? And they were surprised by that fact. That if men who, I mean, we met for a podcast, but if you meet men in an unfriendly scenario or you don't know who they are, for a fraction of a second, you're thinking, can I win this fight? Are they going to attack me? It crosses our minds. We live in a very physical realm.
Sure.
Any man who doesn't has been polluted by the matrix and will never be competitive and is doomed to fail. But if you're truly competitive like you should be as a man, it always crosses your mind. And one of the important things about physical fitness that most people never talk about, never say, is men treat you different when they know that you'd be hard to hurt. Life treats you different. Women certainly do. That's an obvious one, right? Women like muscly guys because muscly guys can fight. Obviously, that's not the case, but that's how they look dangerous, right? But men also treat you differently, which means society as a whole treats you differently. I would argue that if you wanted to run any kind of company or even do sales or do anything else, let's go back to sales. Let's talk about what we were saying earlier. If I wanted to sell windows and I came in fantastic physical condition, the person who's buying from me, one, knows I'm disciplined, and two, knows I'm diligent. That's going to be some massive advantages from my sales perspective. Right. But also, I would argue that men are happy to look up to somebody who is physically strong in a different regard. I think it would be difficult for you to be a true leader unless you showed some degree of physical prowess. I think that's just the way the world has always worked at a deep level. When a man looks at a guy who's 6'8" and jacked, and he says, we're gonna go into battle, you're more motivated to go into battle beside him because he's 6'8" and jacked. You feel like you're gonna win. You like the idea of being led by a warrior.
Right.
So there's that huge element to it as well. And the final part of it all is that it's so much easier to keep something than it is to gain something. And once you're in good physical shape, it's actually so easy to maintain as opposed to ever get there. It's so hard to get there that if you ever get there, you may as well just keep it.
Right.
It's because it's so easy to keep as opposed to lose. And I think it's in today's world, it's also a huge status symbol because we live in a world now where most things can be bought. You can buy Instagram followers and you can hire a Lambo and you can buy a hot chick to stand next to you, but you can't yet buy perfect physical conditioning. That is showing the world that you did it.
One rep at a time, it's earned.
You have to earn it. And it's one of the few things left that has to be earned the hard way that you can't buy, which I think is also very important. We can also continue to answer this question because you're going to feel different. You feel different as a man when you know you can, and I'm a peaceful man, but when you know if things happened or if someone tried to hurt the woman next to you, you could destroy the man who's trying to do it. You feel different. There's an aura that people can smell. The woman can smell it. Predators can smell it. Maybe perhaps if I was built differently, I would have been treated differently in jail.
Good point, yeah.
But everybody looked at me and they knew who I was and they thought, that's messy, not him. It's just how humans work, right? And it's just how the whole universe works. It's how the animal kingdom works. Even lions and tigers, as fearsome as they are, go for the weakest antelope. They don't want a hard fight. They just want to eat, right?
Even mating partners,
100%. So society is the same. I'm sure there's scenarios in my life where I've walked down a street and I've been left alone, and the person who walked after me a few seconds later, because he wasn't built like I was the one who got mugged. I'm sure that's happened at some point in my life. But I'm the hard target. And I like feeling like the hard target. And I think that I approach life differently knowing I'm the hard target. Yeah. So someone said it smarter than I don't know if it was Plato or one of those ancient Greek philosophers. He said, what a shame for a man to grow old without ever knowing the true power his body is capable of. And I completely agree.
Wow.
Aristotle, perhaps. One of those really smart men. But yeah, and it's also one of the true beauties of being a man is being physically strong. I'm trying to think, what would I trade my physical prowess for? I'm not sure. There's not much that could tempt me. And once it's kind of like being rich. Once you become rich, you get used to it and you don't appreciate it. But if you lost all of your money, you would be miserable and you'd know, I didn't appreciate it when I had it. Now I want it back. I had it all and I lost it. I wasted it. I think physical prowess is the same thing. It's something I take for granted all of the time. But even if I look at jail, if I look how some of the smaller prisoners are being treated, the fact that nobody even tried to treat me that way, it's intangible.
All right. And then what's the biggest misconception people have that you've seen being on this side of the fence about you that you think most people don't understand?
Do people have deliberate misconceptions? I'm not sure they do. I think the people who don't understand me have... Sorry, I'll reword that. I don't think people have misconceptions unless it's deliberate. The people who misunderstand me have deliberately misunderstood me because they don't like my monumental successes and there's a degree of envy and jealousy and they want to try and tear down my character because there's nothing else they can attack me with. They can't call me dumb. They can't call me unsuccessful. Can't call me weak. Can't call me stupid. There's nothing else to call me besides a bad person. I think it's deliberate misconceptions which they are deliberately holding on to because there's a huge envy factor involved in all of these things. Hate always comes from below. And no matter what I say to them, they're not going to change their mind. And I have very little interest in changing their mind because there's no light without dark. And one of the reasons I'm so monumentally successful is because every time I say anything, there's a huge public discourse around it. So it's fine by me. I need the idiots. They're effectively free staff. They work for me and they amplify my message endlessly. So I appreciate them. And they do it for free and they dedicate their lives sitting there getting upset, talking about me, giving me their human time and energy, eating food to burn into calories to talk about Andrew Tate. And they think if they put it in a negative way, it somehow harms me, and it does the absolute opposite. So they can keep their misconceptions.
What would your final words be to the world? Final words of wisdom?
My unmatched perspicacity, coupled with sheer indefatigability, makes me a feared opponent in any realm of human endeavor.
Say that one more time.
My unmatched perspicacity, coupled with sheer indefatigability, makes me a feared opponent in any realm of human endeavor.
Beautiful, my man.
Thanks, G.
And then at the end, top G, my man, it's a privilege. At the end, we play a little word relation game. So it's a very simple game we wrap up pods with.
I can feel it.
Don't worry.
All right, let's go.
We can edit how you like.
All right, let's go.
So I'm going to rifle off a quick word or phrase. Could be a person, could be an idea, just your first intuitive response. It could be short, it could be quick. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself.
Okay.
Ready?
Ready.
All right. Money.
Power.
Your brother.
Best friend.
God.
I'm going to say scary.
Religion.
I don't want to break the rules, but you ask me these words and I can only think of very long answers.
Let it flow. It's okay. Let it flow.
Religion is, humans have always been religious. And I just want to say when you talk about religion, I was going to say imperative. And the reason I'll say that is not because I believe that, well, I do believe people need to believe in God, but there is no one on earth who doesn't have a religion. And if you don't believe in God, then you're believing in government or LGBT or communism or some garbage. There's nobody on earth that doesn't have a religion. And I think religion should be God, as opposed to pretending you're an atheist and then worshiping your government who taxes you to oblivion instead. There's nobody who is not religious. There are just people who believe in different things.
The Matrix. I can hear all the conveyor belt of words and phrases and ideas.
I'm going to say it's necessary. And I know that's a strange answer for most people, but human beings always resort to a form of order, even if that order is tyrannical. Because without order, there's chaos, and I don't think humans actually like the idea of chaos. The reason dictators stay in power in these countries is because if you remove the dictator, it just becomes warlords, warring tribes, and gang wars. And no one likes the idea of their children getting shot in the street by a random gang, and there's no repercussion, there's no law, there's no order, there's nothing they can do about it besides go out there and die themselves against the gang. I think humans naturally incline towards order. And as broken as the Matrix is, it is a form of order for the people who are prepared to be slaves. I'm not. And there's a lot of men out there who are not prepared to be slaves anymore. But it does keep a degree of law and order amongst society for now. And I don't think it's going to last much longer. However, a version of the Matrix is always going to be, to some degree, necessary.
The afterlife.
Serene.
President Trump.
He's brave.
Elon Musk.
He's brave too, but I can't use the same word twice. Elon. What one word do I use for Elon?
Word or phrase, it's okay.
A lot I can say about Elon. I think he's done fantastic things in terms of cracking the matrix. He's certainly been a huge orchestrator of it. To give him credit, I'm going to have to think about what word I'd give Elon, because you could say brave, but I think it's something more than that. I think he's cunning. I think he knows what he's doing at a deeper level than most understand.
Biden.
Tired.
What do they call him? Sleepy Joe?
Yeah.
The future.
I would say dystopian, and I'll also say, I'm going to say dystopian, but I don't believe it's for everybody. I think the world is cyclical, and we're going to soon be returning to a version of history where there were kings and there were serfs, there were peasants and there were lords and rulers. And I think that this AI systems are going to keep a lot of people very firmly in their place. Social mobility will be removed, and if you're not rich, your chance of getting rich will be zero. If you're not free, your chance of becoming free will be zero. You and your entire bloodline will be enslaved forever in your 15-minute city. But there's going to be people living outside the matrix who will live better than ever before. And I think that the world's just going to get more divided, with the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer, the free becoming more free, and those who are currently confined by their finances or their geographical location are soon going to be completely enslaved. Divided, perhaps, is the word.
Freedom.
I think it's a decision, because I felt free in jail, because I knew I'd made the decisions. Although the decisions I made put me there, I knew they were the right decisions to make.
Peace of mind.
A luxury.
Being top G.
Stressful.
The key to getting women, for men out there wondering.
Key to getting women, competence. They like men who can get things done.
Your biggest insecurity.
We talked about this earlier, didn't we? What is my biggest insecurity?
Not having any?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think of one for the next podcast. Part 2, I'll come back with a whole list of insecurities. I'll see if I can find any. But like, I don't operate under that paradigm. I don't operate under that frame. There could be something glaringly wrong with me, and I refuse to operate under that frame. I don't think it's advantageous. I think I'm most competitive if I don't operate under the frame of this is bad about me. So I don't have any.
Best advice you've ever been given?
Best advice I've ever been given. I've had a lot of good advice, but I heard this, someone reminded me of this only yesterday. I heard it many years ago, and they reminded me of it yesterday, and they said, never scare a coward, because they're going to do the most heinous things to get revenge.
Worst advice you've ever been given?
Follow your passion. It's garbage. The man who made money with concrete was not passionate about concrete. He just wanted to win. Your passion should be winning at any cost. A lot of people say to me, I want to do a business I'm passionate about. I said, yeah, girls want to open flower shops, but guess what? Flower shops don't make girls rich. So,
Fulfillment.
children.
Children.
Yeah.
The next word was
Fulfillment.
children. Smart. And Andrew Tate in 2024 and 2025.
Hopefully, free. Be nice to have a couple years of free in between the incarcerations. We'll see how it goes.
And the last one, Andrew Tate 10 years from now.
Not sure. I don't think that far ahead, but perhaps I should start, but I don't afford myself the luxury. If I'm alive in 10 years from now, my intention is to have 20 sons so I can raise the future generation of troublemakers for the Matrix, the John Connors,
Some Andrew Tate Jr.'s
to
floating
fight
around.
against Skynet. And I haven't got 20 yet, but we're getting there.
And then, I know we mentioned it earlier, but I got to ask again. When you're dead, gone, and nothing but a pile of dust, what do you hope the world remembers Andrew Tate as?
Brave is the word I'm going to stick with. I made the brave choice. Every time there was a choice on my table between left and right and I wasn't sure which one to choose, I chose the one which took the most bravery.
And what it means to be one of the passionate few. It's the name of the podcast, so.
You don't own anything in this world but your soul anyway. And what is a soul without passion, right? So I'm quite blessed, to be honest, regardless of what happens to me. I'm glad there's something I feel is worth standing up for. I think there'd be nothing worse than living a life where you didn't feel anything was worth risking yourself for. What's the point in being alive?
Oh man, Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Thanks, bro.
Top G, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.